Tom Giannotti, attorney with the Butler Law Firm. I'm here today to talk about the stages of a personal injury case. Now, we've done some videos that talk about a lot of the finer details of the personal injury case, including some of these topics that I've listed here. But it occurred to me that I hadn't really done a more broad overview of the big picture. And I thought of something that might be helpful to conceptualize this is, a lot of people are more familiar with our criminal justice system from shows like Law and Order, which is one of my favorites. But there's not really shows about civil injury cases because that would be terribly boring, of course. But I think of the opening narration in Law and Order that says, in the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. You can kind of think of a civil case in similar terms where you have two main stages. So like in the criminal cases, you have the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute them. Civil cases are really not all that different in that sense, because those are basically the two same stages, except in our case, we're doing both. Now, some law firms will hire private investigators to do some of this stuff, but we found that it could be advantageous to actually get out and do that work ourselves and actually get out there and talk to folks face to face when it comes to things like interviewing witnesses. But anyway, so I wanted to just talk a bit about this. So not every case goes to a lawsuit, by the way. But let's assume that for a case that does, this is sort of the general overview. So in every case, you're going to have an investigation that happens. The first thing, it starts with you're calling our office. The intake interview, the initial interview, is actually very important because that's our first opportunity to figure out what happened and gather, ask the right questions and gather evidence just from talking with you. And not in this particular order necessarily, but our next steps are generally, we like to get out and try to find witnesses right away before memories fade. We also like to look for physical evidence right away because that can be easily lost. We did another video recently talking about a recent case of ours where we found surveillance footage of an accident from a gas station. And had we gotten out there, maybe possibly even a week later, that the tape could have been saved over. So those are our sort of immediate steps. As soon as we have a signed representation agreement with our client, we get out there and do that work right away. So witnesses can include what we call lay witnesses, or just regular folks like you and me, or they could be expert witnesses like an accident reconstruction expert or human factors expert, etc. We'll often involve those folks early in the case, or possibly involve them later in the case when we get to this stage. But we found, again, it's good to do that from the outset in many cases. So physical evidence gathering can be things like that surveillance video. It involves going out to the scene, a lot of times hiring an expert accident reconstructionist to do that, and also to inspect the vehicles themselves. There may be debris, skid marks, those sort of things at the scene that, again, can be lost if you don't get out there right away. And then medical records. Obviously, a lot of your injury case is going to depend on your injuries. And if you're still treating with a doctor, it's important for us to follow that treatment and make sure that we stay on top of what's going on with you, and of course for you to listen to your body and get the treatment you need. But at the appropriate time, we obviously need to get those records. That's an important documentary part of your case. And also we look for insurance information. So that could be car insurance. It would also be your health insurance, and looking for any rights of reimbursement, or what we call subrogation, from the health insurer. Those are just a few major things that we do as part of our investigation process. I call that pre-suit. A lot of times lawyers use that term. Again, not every case goes to a lawsuit, but these are generally the things that we need to do before we can, really be in a position to file a lawsuit, get to the bottom of what happened. Then if we file a lawsuit, we're ready to do that. That starts the complaint, and we have to serve the defendant or defendants with a lawsuit. And hopefully that person, that the defendant is, we're able to track them down without too much trouble. Sometimes that takes a lot more work. And once the person is served, they have an opportunity to file an answer. I won't get too much into detail on this because we have another video on this exact topic of stages anatomy of a lawsuit. But just big picture, discovery. Things like written discovery, depositions, those are all things that get done generally in the first 6 months after an answer has been filed. And then at various times during the lawsuit, parties can file motions. A lot of times that happens closer to trial. Things like what they call a motion in limine or motion to exclude evidence at trial for various reasons. And then there may be hearings on that, and maybe briefing exchanged between the parties and the court. Finally, if the case goes to trial, then we finally get to our favorite part of the case, which is trial. And hopefully we don't have an appeal, or maybe we want to appeal. That's not as common, but some cases do go up on appeal. How long all this process takes really depends on the facts and circumstances of that particular case. Sometimes all of this can happen very quickly. Other times it can be delayed for various reasons. One common reason, I love our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, sometimes their investigations can drag on for quite some time and hinder our ability to prosecute the civil case. Same thing when it gets to the DA's office, that can sometimes interfere with our ability to have access to all the evidence that's in the law enforcement file. There are other circumstances that, again, can delay trial, or even if you have to appeal, that can take quite some time. But generally, it's been my experience that on average, cases take roughly about a year to resolve. Again, that is not a promise as to any specific case. We've had cases take much shorter than that, and unfortunately cases take longer than that. But it's our mission in every case to prosecute the cases diligently and move as expeditiously as we possibly can. So hopefully this has been informative. If you have other questions, please feel free to contact our law firm. Thank you for watching.